Friends, allies, and Americans, welcome to the Defense of Democracy podcast, where we tell the stories of folks who defend your children's rights by advocating for inclusive public school systems and who fight for diversity across our nation. I'm your host, Karen Swoboda. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Defense of Democracy podcast. This is Karen, and today my guest is Debbie. Debbie is the new volunteer state director for the state of New York. Among other things, Debbie is a retired special education teacher, definitely a supporter of our public school system. Debbie, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Became a special education teacher. I'm also certified as a reading teacher and a regular ed teacher. But special ed, I really have a passion for. I think it's because kids learn differently in special ed. To me, that it's just a different way of learning. It's that one size fits all concept does not work. It just doesn't work at all. And some of my students have actually did very, very well for themselves. I can't say how, but I know two off the top of my head.
Well, you're talking about teaching a group of children who have the odds stacked against them, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and I love that you kind of opened with, I've wanted to be a teacher since I was 9, because I argue this a lot. When we get into this whole parents' rights movement, parents absolutely have rights. I have rights as a parent. However, I would not consider myself qualified in any way to teach, especially a group of special ed kids, or to decide what books they should read and things like that. So people like yourself who have kind of known since day one that teaching is your calling, I think, there's a lot to be said for that, for someone like yourself who, I don't know, how many years of schooling do you have?
Let's see, I have a master's, because in New York you have to have a master's. So figure 4 years of college, undergrad, another for myself, another 3 years for a master's, because I actually switched my master's. I was just going to be regular special ed, and then they opened up a program for special ed and reading. So I was like, oh, I'll do that one. So.
And did you have, through the years, have you taken certification classes and seminars and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. In New York, you have to have professional development now. Okay, where now all teachers have to have X number. I don't know the number, so I'm saying X number of professional courses behind them. So,
and I mean, the state. So, just to give a little perspective, the state schools in New York, where do they rank?
Top 20.
Yeah.
Out of 50 states, we come in and the top 20.
Right.
So,
you see how much not pressure, but how much the requirement to be a teacher in a state where the schools do so well are high. You're just not going to walk off the street and without a college degree start teaching children about a topic that you don't know anything about.
Oh, definitely. In fact, it came up with a story just popped in my head. A friend of mine who's also a teacher and myself, when we were younger, our daughters were very close and went to my friend's daughter's birthday party. There were a bunch of parents there, and one parent turned around and was saying, oh, teaching is so easy. That's why I've gone back to school, and I'm going to be a teacher because, you get the summers off and and get on and on and on and on and on. Right. Happened when she was time for her student teaching, she actually requested my school and my classroom.
Okay.
So I got a hold of the teacher that she was supposed to do the elementary side of, and I told her the story, and I was like, let her see what it's like.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks she was in there, and I gave her first an assignment, and she wound up doing a whole unit at the end. She actually within 2 weeks came up to me and got me on the side and said, I have to apologize.
Wow.
And I was like, for what? And she's like, this is so tough. I cannot believe how hard it is to teach, and the nights that I have gone without sleep to get lessons together.
Yes.
And I looked at her and I said, and that's not counting your progress reports as a special ed teacher that you have to send out on top of report cards, your yearly IEP meetings, and writing up IEPs, which are so intense now that it takes over 2 hours per child.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably more. And even though it's point and click and cut and paste that you can do, it's still, on the average, takes 2 hours per child.
So as somebody who's been a teacher their whole life, it's not you go in at 8 and you're done at 2 and your summers are off and you have this extra long winter break. I mean, I feel like people who think that don't have any friends or family who are teachers.
No,
I mean,
no,
I'm not,
no, no. I mean, it was time in the summer, like the whole month of July, I would say to my daughter, like, please, like if you can go to your friend's house for a day, please, I will take you wherever you want for the first. I have to decompress, and by like second week into July, I was like, okay, I'll do, like, now I'll take you wherever. It's just like I need a week. I need a week.
So let's talk about schools in New York now. Okay, because you have recently signed on as the New York Volunteer State Director of Defensive Democracy. You're fairly new, but I will say to anybody who's listening, Debbie has come in swinging, right? You're not messing around like you and I have had. And so and I'm hoping that people will be listening to this. People from other states, maybe from New York, might say, hey, listen, this is a role. This is something that I might be interested in. So describe so far what your life is like as a volunteer state director for Defensive Democracy and what you do.
What I do, reaching out. I'm basically reaching out to people to try to get them to join. We need lots and lots of people to try to go to board meetings and to really get involved. This isn't like we say to people, it's not like you're going to sit behind a screen and hit the happy emoji because I like what you just posted.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go to the school meetings. You have to get there. It's people saying parents aren't involved enough. And I'm saying you need to get involved. Looking at education, having a granddaughter who's in the school system, having actually a lot of grandkids between my partner and myself, having a lot of grandkids coming in. It's scary. It's scary now of people that want to force their stuff onto other people. And the fact of a lot of people are standing up there and spouting reasons that I sit there and go, what are you thinking? You're not a teacher. It's like me walking into the middle of an OR going, I saw YouTube on Open Heart and I don't think you're doing that right. I'm sorry.
I got this. Give me a scalpel.
I got this. Yeah, give me right.
That's a really good analogy, though. I mean, that's really so in your district, have you seen things like that where have there been issues for you personally in your community?
One district had someone for a group that tried to run for council.
Okay.
Did not make it. Other groups got out and got involved. Another one tried.
Are you talking about a specific group, or are you just saying
I'm saying, I don't know if I can name specific groups.
But... Yeah, you can name I name them all the time.
Oh, okay, yeah, Moms for Liberty.
Surprise.
Yeah, that
surprise.
Crew.
Okay.
Yeah, that crew. They're if you want to call them, I got other words for them, but yeah, like walking in and trying, and this one district, they came in dead last. Actually, Then they tried for another district. It was a city up my way. People came out and said, this person who was running is a loose cannon, to put it nicely.
Right.
And she didn't make it either, so.
And it's surprisingly easy to out these people in their fascism and their racism and their homophobia and their denial of history and their denial of science, because they're pretty public about it.
Yeah.
But it does take a group of people to say, we're going to educate the public as to what this cutesy little named Moms for Liberty group is really about.
Right. Right. And up where I am, I'm not saying all of New York, but where I am, which is central and upper New York,
Right.
is basically a red district.
Right.
So it's a lot harder, and to see Moms for Liberty actually being voted out, it's like, yes.
Yes, right?
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
these little
happy
victories.
dance. Yeah, happy dance. We gotta do the happy dance.
But in all seriousness, it's a serious fight. It's a tough fight, and it's a serious fight, and it's now coming from the highest levels of government.
Yeah.
So we have a president who is talking about literally defunding the public education system.
Yeah.
What do you think that would look like?
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. No. Lots of people are like, oh, let's defund education. I'm telling you right now, a lot of you guys don't know what the Department of Education does, okay? You have a kid going to college, to Pell Grants. Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Okay? You want to do like when I went to school with, eons ago, where you had to go to banks to get your loans and go to each bank. And luckily, my grandfather was a banker, so he was able to pull some strings so I can get a decent loan to go to school.
Right.
Right. You're not going to be able to do that now. It's going to be all privatized and corporate and all that stuff. So,
oh my God,
that's done. You have Title I will be done away with, and Title I, for people who don't know that, is for the people who are economically deprived. And that's going to be done. And there's a lot of districts.
Is that like lunches? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it could be lunches too. Yeah, I believe it is. But Title I is also for like remedial reading. I remember my school being a Title I school. And you get extra funding because you are in a district where the kids are from economically challenged area.
Right.
So if you're in an economically challenged area, bye-bye.
You're going to lose all your resources.
You're going to lose that. And let me tell you something. You think that the schools have supplies and everything, and they don't. They don't. I, as a teacher, used to spend over $2,000 a year on supplies. Yep. So let's just cut that myth out that everybody's got supplies, because they don't. So with Title I, all that's going to be gone. Your lunches, done. Special education, done. And that also entitles for special education. I'm not talking about like the classes that I taught or the ones for more severe handicapped people. I am talking occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. That all comes under the guise of special ed. Done. So I have a family member whose son is verbally challenged. We'll put it that way, right? He's not on the level. He's getting services now. Bye.
Yeah.
That's gone. That's gone.
The public school system has, I mean, it's not perfect by any means. It's absolutely not a perfect system, but you cannot replace it with private, because exactly like what you're saying, because then the people who need the resources are not going to have access to the resources.
Right.
Right. Which is pretty horrific when you let that sink in.
Oh yeah, and then you go to say, oh well, the religious schools could take them. No, because in the district that I was in, there were times where the resource room teacher had taken on, or kids were coming from the local religious school over to our public school, and he would give them the resources. So the parents would have to sign them out, bring them over to the regular school. Then my friend would give them their resource room time, and then parents would drive them back. That's done.
So, okay, we're about halfway through and I don't want to lose that thread, but I want to do a quick shout out to a volunteer. I always do a volunteer shout out in the middle of the show. The volunteer I want to talk about right now is Craig. Craig is a volunteer who came to us through an organization that places people who have certain developmental challenges. Speaking of special education. And Craig has been doing an amazing job of researching when and where the school board meetings are so that our volunteers will easily be able to say, when's my school board meeting and where is it? And they'll show up. So I'm very grateful to volunteers like Craig who have overcome their disabilities to be able to assist organizations like Defense of Democracy in our mission of protecting the American public school system. So, Debbie, back to you.
As a side, I've met Greg. We had
You've
the
met
meeting,
Craig?
right? We met Greg, and he's phenomenal. I love him. He's great.
He's a
He's
doll.
good
Yeah,
people.
he's wonderful, as
Yeah.
are all of our volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of, so let's talk about like another thing that I really hope the listeners are understanding right now is the difference. One of the big differences between a private school or a religious school and a public school is those private or religious schools. Two things. First of all, they can deny admission to anyone for any reason. They don't even have to tell you why. Second of all, the teachers are not held to the same standards. You literally can walk into a private school and start teaching, and not have the qualifications that, are required in our public school system. So, so when you have a public school, and this is happening, all over, when you're threatening to defund the public school system and then talking about funneling some of those funds into charter schools or private schools, they can use those funds any way that they want. Whereas a public school is required to have accommodations for students who are deaf, for students who are sight impaired, right? Like they're required to accommodate every single student and cannot turn anyone away. Whereas the private school, it's a whole different ballgame.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard. And I've had parents that I had a student that came from a religious school into my classroom, and the parents couldn't quite understand why things were happening that it didn't happen in the other school.
Needed to happen.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I'm like, this is public school, and this is how we do things.
And I can, yeah, absolutely. So, Debbie, what are some of your, I guess, do you have concerns going into the spring with 2025 and our schools or systems in general, our public systems?
I'm terrified. Are you kidding? I am terrified. I am. It's scary, especially if they're going to fund the education, the Department of Education. It's like kids. Like I said, I have two students that, off the top of my head, that have done very, very well for themselves in life. That I am 100% certain had not gone through the special education way of doing things.
Right.
Would not be where they are today. Not where they are. There are kids. I'm going to use my granddaughter. My granddaughter has a 504. She has ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
My granddaughter is very proactive. She wants to be a doctor. She's 11. She wants to be a doctor. She has it all planned out. This is her route. You take away that 504 that she has, which is accommodations in a regular classroom setting. For people who don't know what a 504 is that she has special accommodations like extra time for a test, go to an extra room, a quiet setting, because she can't, she has a problem focusing, that she could take her test in a private room. It's the same test. All right. I don't want anybody to say, well, it's because, whatever. It's the same test. She could just go to a different setting. If she has her ADHD kick in, there's like a desk in the back of the room, a standing desk, so she can go pick her stuff up, go to the back of the room and stand there and like do little bouncy things, and but she gets her work done.
Right.
I want to know that for this marking period, my granddaughter, who's also taking, she's in regular education, she
Hmm.
just has this 504 to help her get through,
Right.
made high honor roll for her
Oh,
grade,
good for
right?
her.
Yeah, 95s, 90, like nothing really below a 90. And she was so proud of herself. Take that away. Take away that 504 that this kid has. And you're going to be complaining, as parents will be complaining of, she's bouncing off the walls, my kid can't learn. Well, that's because you took away her ability to learn, which is her constitutional right to an education.
Amen. Amen. What would you say to, let's talk to fellow teachers who may be listening to this podcast. What would you communicate to your retired teacher? So you're not, I mean, this is your retirement, but you are still advocating and you are still working hard. What would you say to the teacher who is in the thick of it and they're afraid to put a book in their library at home, in their classroom, and they've got a parent who is the teacher is a member of the LGBTQ community, and the parent doesn't want them to have a rainbow, or maybe they're not a member, maybe they're just inclusive and they don't want them to have a rainbow flag. What would you communicate to those teachers right now?
I would say to them, number one, union. Like, I am a union person. Where I worked in the district, my union was one of the strongest unions in the
Yeah.
city. All right. So for me, I would tell a teacher, you make certain you have the backup of your union.
Yeah.
Okay. Make certain, because if something
Which
goes
the
down,
union is also under attack. Like the
right,
teachers union is like the strongest union in the country, by the way. But
right,
even, I mean, that they're definitely putting a lot of pressure on teachers unions, but I agree with you.
right.
Yes.
So basically, I would turn around and say, you want the flag in your room? Do it. Do it. Explain it as a learning lesson. Okay, because if you can have, and I know this is going to be a little like wavy and squirrely the way I'm going to try to explain this, but if you can have religious clubs in your school, and technically you can have them without forcing your beliefs, you can put a flag up in your room and teach it in such a way that you're not forcing your beliefs. You could do
I
it
mean, the
that way.
majority of them I have, it's not even a thing. The flag is just there.
There.
It's not like they,
Right. And if a parent complains, it's like, it's a flag. Like,
I
get over it type
feel
of thing. And books and libraries and everything else.
right.
See, I have like I put, everybody knows me, they know the district, and my teaching style,
Right.
and I used to go back for kids was basically I would just throw all the cards on the table and let the bird fly. So for me, it would be like, oh, okay, I have this book about LGBTQ or whatever, fill in the blank. And your kid brought it home. Okay, well then send it back if you don't want the kid to read it.
I mean, it's so simple, right? It's just like, you can opt the child out of anything. You shouldn't opt the whole school out of something.
It, right?
And
Right.
just for the record, I want to say, to our teachers are such a precious resource, to our community and our country. And their job is hard. They have to work at the teaching. I say this all the time, is not a career. Teaching is a calling. So when you answer that call, you're taking on all of that extra stuff, and you're financially investing your own. You've got it, not only for your education, but like you said, in the actual process of teaching a classroom, you've got to provide supplies, and you've got to work out and around and outside of your hours. I think our teachers are worthy of not only worthy of respect, but worthy of being defended as much as possible. So, Debbie, I want to thank you for your time on the podcast today. I always like to end on a high note or a happy note. Can you tell me something that you're looking forward to in the coming months? It could be something personal. It could be, something else. But what are you looking forward to?
Oh, in the coming months? My daughter's going to have baby number 2 in March.
No.
So, yeah. So my 11-year-old's going to have a little baby sister. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I call her Peanut already from the sonogram. So I'm like, Peanut. I'm going to squish you.
Oh my God, Debbie, you're thank you. You are so joyful. You're like the best grandmother. I bet you were an amazing teacher. I wish my kids could have had you.
Oh, thank
they
you.
had their own great teachers. So thank you for joining me today. This was really a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.